Watching her throw all these spices into the pot, and I was like, how am I going to be able to do this, you know? Like, I am obsessed with Kashmiri chili, and I would have my dinner and I'd have the really spicy green chili fresh on the side and I'd bite it. When I was in MasterChef, my dream was to open an Indian restaurant in Australia. And luckily I didn't, because when I started traveling around India, I realized I only had touched the surface of Indian cuisine. And as I explored all of these different regions, I just was blown away with the diversity, and you know, the north and south is completely different in terms of cuisine, and so much variety that I was traveling, but I was also very overwhelmed by all of the different techniques and flavors, and you know, just understanding what it was. So as I started to delve into it, I realized I had a lot to learn, but as I started cooking it, I realized that it's not as difficult as it looks. And you know, I remember I'd be in the kitchen and people would be throwing a little bit of cumin, a little bit of, you know, garam masala, and I'd be like, what's that measurement? How much did you put? And they're like, it's from the heart, you know, you have to cook with your intuition. So it was that process that took me time to realize, but I think I've kind of simplified it in a way that anyone can not be intimidated by Indian cuisine. They can pick it up, they can, you know a bit of the basics and be able to cook delicious dishes that just taste amazing. Well, I had a little bit of Indian takeaway when I was younger, but not a lot. I'm from a really small town. But true pure Indian food, I would say, is not until 10 years ago. And that was when the first dish that I tried was keema, and still today is one of my favorite dishes. And that I just love the flavors and the different layers of, you know, ingredients that are going into the dish. And that was it's not a butter chicken, it's not a dal makhani, where it's quite heavy foods that you only have once a month. You can have keema once a week, and it's a healthy dish that you can eat all the time. So that's when I was like, wow, obsessed with Indian cuisine. It was about, I think it was 2014, I started studying at Le Cordon Bleu. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine, right? It's French techniques, it's to the book, everything is exactly how it has to be. It's, you follow it step by step and you get your dish at the end. And then I was spending time with my son's grandparents, and they're from Punjab, and watching her throw all these spices into the pot, and I was like, how am I going to be able to do this? I have no idea. So it was this huge battle in my mind of, how do I cook Indian cuisine when I'm so trained to be specific and by the book? And I have to say, it was probably 3 or 4 years into living in India that I really was able to click and manipulate Indian ingredients and start to kind of seamlessly add it into still the French technique, but Indian flavors coming through it. So it's been a long process, and I feel like, there was definitely a moment when it just kind of clicked and I understood it a bit more. Terrible thing is, I've gone so far down the Indian track where I don't even measure myself when I'm cooking. And now I'm just throwing it in. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to make that whole recipe again because I didn't measure anything. So it was just constantly, making the dishes over and over. And I think trying to find that balance where, the ingredients are measured, but trying to give people enough confidence to be able to experiment themselves. And and I talk about it a lot, even just simple dishes to make at home, whether it's just putting a little bit of toast and cumin seeds on carrots and roasting them in the oven. It's incredible. And I think it's those little differences that, make everyday food delicious and, you know, taking it up a notch, but it's not difficult for anyone to do. So those sort of things I'm great at, and experimenting I'm really good at, because I don't know the true history of all these dishes. So, you know, and I often have conversations with people in India and they're like, how did you come up with that? And it's just because I think people have been having keema and all these dishes since they're children, whereas I'm new to it. And so I don't know how it's meant to be. So I go, oh, okay, so this actually might go really nicely with some really crisp lettuce and, you know, with some yogurt on top. And then it's a bit more of a Santal Bao style, you know, keema, where, you know, I don't know the background behind it. So I think that gave me an advantage to be able to experiment with the flavors.
Definitely.
Every single recipe has an anecdote or a connection to an experience that I've had in India. And I think, you know, for me, what I've realized is, you know, from opening a restaurant or writing a cookbook, so many of us can write a recipe, right? But it's that nostalgia and the connection to a dish that makes it special. And people talk about cooking from the heart and cooking, you know, with love. And it sounds a little bit crazy, but at the end of the day, it does taste better when you have, you can envision the story around it. So in all of the dishes, it really was a personal experience that I've had in India. And I think also a lot of them will connect with people in India because they would have had a similar experience. And then that dish kind of makes sense. So when they're experimenting, then, you know, it just has that little bit more of a connection to the dish as well. So every single dish is from an experience. I think one of the regions, or I mean, so many of them I love, and I think I have a story from every place, but I specifically spent a lot of time in Rajasthan, and you know, I cooked in a village with these beautiful women and their entire family, and it was a true representation of how food can be a language and how it connects people. And we sat there, and, you know, I'm sure she was like, her son became my best friend basically, and he's just like sitting on my lap and like hanging out with me the whole time, and we're cooking bajri ki roti, and, you know, it was just such a beautiful experience sitting on the floor over a flame. And, you know, she'd like kind of hit me every time I did things wrong, and I was like, okay, good, I'm learning the hard way, and I like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was just such a magical experience. You know, lal mas from there as well, being cooked in the ground with all those incredible flavors. And, you know, obviously people at home can't replicate that kind of cooking method, but, you know, trying to show people that there's different types of marinades and things that they can be using all over the world, and not just the traditional or the most common, I suppose. I went to Assam, and I went all the way along the Brahmaputra. Wow. And I went into a home of a Mishing family, and I basically, like, the entry of their house is their kitchen. So, you know, the front door is basically their kitchen, and inside their house is two like flames set up in their kitchen on the ground. There's like pots, they've got these drying racks which are, you know, smoking the meats and curing the meats. And it was this entire setup that, like, chefs would actually dream of having this kind of setup in their kitchen or in their home. And that's what they do every single day. And I think just seeing those methods and, you know, the preparations that are done to certain dishes, to, like, there's no wonder the food is incredibly flavorsome, because, you know, the techniques are incredible, the flavors that go into it are amazing. So I definitely learned a lot, and I've just been trying to pull, you know, bits of all of my experiences into the book. Antares was the first big project that I ever worked on as an entrepreneur, and I was so emotionally attached to the restaurant, and it felt like a second child. And when I walked in the day that, you know, I was in Goa when the fire happened, and I raced back. I'd just left the restaurant and I'd been gone for maximum 20 minutes. I was on my way home, and I got the call saying that the fire has started in the restaurant. You need to get back here. So I like dropped my mum and my kids, my son and my nephew off at home, and I raced back. By the time I got back, maximum a half an hour, the entire place was up in flames. And it was like my heart sunk. It felt like, I don't know, I was absolutely devastated. It was like this scene from a horror film. Like I was running up and my staff is like holding me back, like, no ma'am, no ma'am. And I'm just devastated. And I just didn't know what to think. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing in front of my eyes, and that, you know, something that I had been building for years was gone in a matter of 45 minutes. And I can't tell you how devastated I was. It was like, I think it took me a good 6 months to recover emotionally from the loss. And in that time, you know, it was the middle of peak season. So, you know, as you know, like in Goa, you're shut for a lot of the year, 6 months of the year, and you need that period to make it a viable business. And it hit January 8, and so right in the middle of peak season, and financially we were hit incredibly hard. And for the next 4 or 5 months, we were deciding whether we would reopen and if we could financially. And, you know, but I guess the day after the fire happened, the news went viral globally. Like there must have been, I don't know, 60, 70 articles that came out straight away. Everyone was sending me so many warm messages and so much positive energy. And everyone was just saying, you know, you'll come back bigger and better than ever. We'll be here to support you. And, you know, and I think that was a really big motivator for me, that I guess up until that point, I hadn't really realized what a beast I had built, I suppose. And I think it was all those comments that gave us the strength to come back fighting and, you know, push for it to be reopened. And we built the restaurant in 4 months. And, you know, the first time round, it took us about 7 or 8. So we did a great job getting it back up, and that was all hands on deck, and everyone was, you know, very supportive, business partner, you know, all the staff were helping, and it was amazing. And I think that you really, like, as an entrepreneur, you are going to go through a lot of these highs and lows throughout the entire time, and you do just have to get back up. And, you know, it is devastating when you have such a big loss. And but I think it was realizing that, you know, as an entrepreneur, you're actually responsible for a lot of people now, and, you know, it's not just about me. So I did definitely want to, you know, get all my staff back into working full time, and you know, it was a lot of support of that along the way. But yeah, it's definitely very, very hard for sure. Didn't even recover the money that we had lost from the fire and the rebuild. So we're still definitely, you know, not in a great position, but it is that, you know, I think right now everyone's in the same position. So that I think, you know, I guess it's not that it makes it, everyone being in the same position, I think it just makes us realize we do have to bind together and push through it, and it is going to be temporary. And for us, you know, obviously we know we're not going to make any profits, but we just need to survive it. And, you know, our focus is just keeping all the staff in work and keeping the restaurant going and financially surviving through this hardship, because we know that it is going to end, and it's just pushing through it. So for us, yeah, I mean, I was speaking to my business partner yesterday, and, you know, we're all very positive, and you have to just be strong and know that it's not going to last forever. It was, I guess, one of the biggest lessons that I learned over this period was not to have all your eggs in one basket. And I did think that I had diversified quite a lot, but in saying that, everything is basically in the food and hospitality industry. So for me, I really wanted to focus on moving into more, you know, products and things that can make people's lives easier, but at home and not necessarily eating out. My focus is to make items for people to make cooking at home easier and affordable and healthy, but still tasty. So lots of things that I'm working on at the moment. And yeah, I think, to be honest, for me, I had a lot of time of reflection over that period over the last 12 months of being in one space, which I've never done in my life. And yeah, you know, I'm just feeling really excited about the future, and you know, I'm hoping that everyone can get back on their feet really quickly and we can start building some exciting businesses together.